We've got Harit Shah of Nirmal Bang Securities who's joining us on the phone line. Harit, thanks for speaking with us. From the face of it, of course, the TCS Q1 performance, more or less in line with what the market was expecting. What's your take on them?
Yeah, definitely. The results are, much in line, in fact, slightly better than what we were expecting. Their top line, we were expecting about $2,708 million. They achieved 2,728. And on the net profit front also, I think, their net profit is also well above expectations. So, at least, from the headline numbers point of view, the results seem to be quite, decent and much better than what Infosys had announced earlier in the day.
Right, and exactly what I was going to come to then next, given that we saw that Infosys stock get really hammered in trade today, and there's a sense that now perhaps it will really be TCS that will be the flavor over Infosys. So what are you sort of making when you look at both the performances of the companies?
No, so definitely Infosys is clearly facing, certain company-specific problems of their own, because of which, even client-specific problems, because of which obviously their revenue growth is very, very weak. Whereas obviously TCS on the other hand doesn't quite seem to be having the same issues as such.
Harit, this is Sunita from Delhi studio. Do you think post the performance, looking at the headline numbers only, do you think the valuation gap between Infosys and TCS is likely to widen now? You expect some investors to shift from Infosys to TCS. Is that what you are expecting?
Yeah, it is very likely that the valuation gap, which is already quite high, I think is going to continue to move up further after this performance.
Okay, and TCS has been outperforming the industry and Infosys especially. Do you think this outperformance can continue for a few quarters to come, or you expect that TCS will also start facing some of the problems they are at the moment reaping the benefits of the steps they've taken in past, but slowly Infosys will start getting their act together while TCS will start facing a high, basically saturation of growth? Is that likely?
Well, I think, from an overall perspective, obviously FY13 will be a slower growth year as compared with FY12. So, I think over the overall entire industry, you're going to see a slightly slower growth this year. So, it's just a question that, relatively speaking, the relative polarization of performances is going to become more and more apparent. So, obviously, companies like Infosys and Wipro are clearly underperforming with, TCS and HCL Tech. I think that will continue going forward.
Let's also take it across to Gaurang Shah, who's of course joining us on the phone line as well. Gaurang, first up, your initial reactions, in line with estimates, more or less, TCS's first quarter. What are you making of it?
Well, just in line, I guess, because there are more numbers that needs to come out in terms of dollar and all that. But the only thing is that, whenever the company comes out with in line with street expectation, you don't have much of incremental upside on the stock. So I don't think the stock tomorrow morning when we open up for the trade will do anything magical. Unfortunately, I guess there is a subdued environment in terms of IT because of the Infosys numbers that we had this morning. I don't think, I think people will possibly have a relook as a sectorial allocation in terms of portfolio on the IT sector, given the kind of numbers that big two boys have come out with.
Right, but of course, when you compare the big two boys, whether it's Infosys, the stock really getting hammered, and then TCS, what are you sort of making of it? What are you expecting tomorrow in terms of the stock?
Well, a marginal knee-jerk reaction, because as I speak right now, there's not much of clarity, but initially what numbers have come out, I guess, I mean, honestly speaking, if you ask me there's going to be potential upside on the stock, I would definitely deny that. You will possibly see the stock reacting TCS tomorrow morning when we open up for trade on the negative side.
Right, Gaurang, we are still waiting to see what it is that the management says, the TCS management says, but of course we've had the Infosys management talk to us about how the economic environment, especially in the United States, is really not all that high, but you've had comments from the TCS CEO saying that they continue to see some sort of global demand and even growth across service sectors. He's calling it pretty secular. So, what are you making in terms of a guidance for the next few quarters?
Honestly speaking, in dire state situation, it's always better to look at the brighter side of life. And with the kind of performance that we've seen, even if you see the performance of the stock of Infosys and TCS being the two most largest players in the IT sector, I think the balance was much more skewed towards TCS rather than Infosys. And there was sectorial shift happening from Infosys to TCS. So I don't think that these kind of words, which are soothing enough in terms of vocabulary, but in terms of materialization, I guess the next quarter or two will possibly speak for itself. And if I am not wrong, there have been quite a bit of budgetary cuts in terms of IT spend that has taken place. The second most important thing is the billing rate. And the third most important thing is going to be sustainability. I don't think of any of these three parameters. Next quarter results would look very rosy. So possibly, people would want to exit. And given the kind of weightage that IT has in the Nifty weightage, I guess we are in for a little bit of trouble times going forward from here on.
Okay, before I let you go, Gaurang, you were making a mention about how it's really now going to be TCS that's going to be the favorite as opposed to, to Infosys. From, of course, somebody who's tracking that space, can you just, in terms of how Infosys and TCS's performances really match up, the first quarter performances, a quick analysis from you, please.
Well, from the shade, what we've seen as of now, I think TCS has done much better than what Infosys has done. Of course, as a disclosure, there would be more numbers that come out. It will possibly throw more light. But it seems, as of now, what numbers are available in front of us, TCS has done much better than what Infosys has done. And the problem is that going forward, how sustainable the environment is, whether it is in terms of distribution of geographies that we have, whether it is in terms of business verticals that we have, or whether it is in terms of wage hikes or employees, headcounts, etc., etc. I think it matters a lot. So as of now, what I see, TCS has done much more better than what Infosys.